to use the software to actually see um, how the different type of cooking protocols compare. So this is the way that we're going to do it. So you see here on the recipe tab, as you learned in the previous video, there are sort of a couple of recipes that are pre-programmed. There's the 4 minutes on a side way to cook a steak, which is the standard way that people cook a steak. There's flip every 15 seconds, which is Heston Blumenthal way. There's America's Test Kitchens method, and there's Nathan Myhrvold's method. So let's just start. We're going to take a steak which, for fun, is 3 centimeters thick. It's going to start at a temperature of 23 degrees. And this is the cooking protocol for 4 minutes on a side. We're going to cook to 150 degrees. So we simply just push the button cook, and the steak actually cooks. And what this basically shows you is the following. So you see here is where the heat is on. This is cooking the first side right here. Here's cooking the second side. And after that, the steak is allowed to rest. And you see basically that as a function of time, so if we look at t equals 0, the steak is raw. If we look at 3 minutes and 20 seconds, then the steak that we've been searing is starting to brown here. It's starting to get well done here, but this side is of course raw. And then we flip it upside down, apply heat to the other side, and as time goes on, you see how the state of meat in the steak changes. So this actually shows you the protein state. This is the final state where the steak this way is medium in the middle, and it's well done around it and browned on the outside. Here's the temperature profile that corresponds to that. So you see during the application of heat, that's where the temperature gets hot on the two sides, and it sort of cools in the middle. And this is basically what happens there. And we can sort of compare that. If at the bottom, I'm going to just put 4 minutes on a side, this sort of shows us basically the temperature distribution that we saw here at the very end. You see there's a medium part, there's a well done part, and then there's the very brown part at the end. So that's that recipe. So now let's compare that just for fun to Nathan Myhrvold's recipe, which you will remember, has dunking the fish in liquid nitrogen in the middle. And if we do that, then if we cook that steak, here's what that looks like. So there is the sous vide situation where where for the first whatever it is minutes, the steak was cooked to 53 degrees. It was then cooled into liquid nitrogen for this long amount of time, and then at the very end the steak was seared, and it becomes brown on the outside. And if you look at what that produces, then it produces this profile, which I can now put down here to compare to the other. And you see that Nathan's method, as he basically argued, gives a much more uniform texture in the middle. How the doneness of the steak in this part really depends on the temperature that he uses for his sous vide bath, and this is really very uniform, where it's much more non-uniform in the 4 minutes on a side recipe. And finally, just for fun, let me sort of do one more recipe. Let's do Heston Blumenthal's flip every 15 seconds, which is a sort of fun comparison to 4 minutes on a side. So if we cook with that, then you see the heat is applied every 15 seconds, and the steak flips upside down, right? Top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom. And now you see by the end, the temperature profile looks like this. So it looks like this. And if we now compare that, so to the 4 minutes on a side recipe, you see it's actually also a bit more uniform, actually, the 15 seconds on the side. Here, Heston's recipe was set up so that it would end up being raw in the middle, but clearly if you kept going back, forth, by flipping, you could achieve a texture which was more like this. This is something you actually can test yourself with this program, and indeed, one of the reasons that we're so excited about this program as a way of learning about heat transfer is you can put in your own heating protocols and try to get some intuition for how they cook a steak. And how they lead to different profiles at the end. Now, one thing that I want to say, which sort of follows from our previous discussion of how this software works, is that this type of a plot, when we say that this part of the steak is well done, for example, requires getting the critical temperature for the steak to be well done exactly correctly. We haven't made a lot of effort to actually calibrate that to be exactly what you might consider to be a well-done steak. We all have different definitions. After all, we've just taken the numbers for that from Harold McGee's book, which are good ballpark numbers. But you should just realize that if you want to actually use this to cook, which I recommend, and to experiment in your own kitchen, you should realize the numbers might be a little bit off for what is assumed to be well done and what is assumed to be medium, for example. But hopefully, using this, you can really start to get more intuition for what is going on inside of a piece of food when it cooks.